Hey everybody, this is Mike, and this is the next Rise of Tiamat prep video. I'm in Chapter 2, I'm kind of wrapping up Chapter 2, and there's a sequence in Chapter 2, either when you're going towards the Sea of Moving Ice, or you're coming back from the Sea of Ice, where you can probably have encounters and different things. Now, I didn't do any encounters there, but I decided to wait and do some encounters on the way back by running it as a choose-your-own-adventure. And I've done this several times in Horror of the Dragon Queen. I think about maybe 3 times or so, 3 or 4 times. I don't do it often, but because I like to keep it as a surprise. But this is some of the prep, and hopefully this will give you some ideas of what you could do on that voyage back. Obviously, the book says you don't have to do anything, but this is an option. And so here I am using Google Slides, and this is the Choose Your Own Adventure stuff, and I have 4 scenarios. Now, if you're just starting out, I wouldn't probably start out with 4 scenarios. Maybe try 2 or 3 with different options for each. As you get the hang of it, because it can get a little complicated with Google Slides, trying to link all these slides up to the answers and the responses and then to the questions, and then the end of those responses connecting to the next scenario and blah blah. It can get really complicated really fast, and that probably made no sense whatsoever. Anyway, this is how I usually would start it here. Matter of fact, I'll just go to a presentation mode, and this is on a 55-inch screen, so they'll see it up there, and I'll just push a button, and up pops scenario 1. All right, so we'll just run through scenario 1 here just real fast, show you how I set it up. So, an old fortress emerges from the clouds as the ice flow forces the ship to take an alternate route. The crew wishes to drop anchor and explore the ruin. The captain, understanding the desire of his ship's crew, prefers to move on, not wanting to waste any more time in the open water. What do you do? All right, so read that out loud at the table and go on to the next one, and this will present some options. Number 1, side with the crew and request a landing to explore the fortress before sundown. All right, so there's their first option. 2, side with the captain and continue on course to Waterdeep, leaving behind the ominous stone fort. Now, this is, again, a sample. The more scenarios I have, more options present themselves. And sometimes scenarios just have like 1 or 2 things you could typically do anyway. So let's hear. Okay, we'll side with the crew and request a landing to explore the fortress. So I'll click on that. The fortress looms before you. Time to explore. Now, this is something new I've added to my Choose Your Own Adventure. Usually, I would just have a result here, and maybe they found treasure, so people would get a boost in gold, or maybe a little bit of experience points, depending on how you run your game, or a magical item, right? That would be the result of this. And I might explain some combat that happened. But this time, what I did for this first scenario, this actually will link. It doesn't link, but what'll happen is if they choose that one, I will go to Tabletop Simulator, and they actually will go through a very, very small dungeon crawl that's like, just a few rooms that'll have something in there, something for them to fight and to find. So that's only if they choose that option, right? But let me see. Let me go back. Hopefully this will go back to where I was. Okay, well, here's the outcome of Part 2, if they would have sided with the captain. The crew is disappointed with your decision and remains elusive and belligerent for the remainder of the voyage, grumbling about lost treasure. Your reputation has suffered a small decline. Now, this actually does make a difference, because there's some scenarios a little bit later where the captain, if you choose the right thing, will offer you free passage up and down the Sword Coast because of just, whatever the scenario was out, just whatever the scenario was about. Sorry. It's just if you made a wise decision. But here, there's the fortress rooms before you. Now here's scenario 2. I'll just run through this real quick, just so you can see it, just more examples. You wake up to find an abandoned ship floating nearby without any crew. The sailors are spooked by its appearance and believe it to be a ghost ship. The captain isn't swayed by their superstition, but is mildly interested in the old vessel. What do you do? Now you can see here, I have 4 options, right? So some scenarios are going to have a lot more options and a lot more outcomes. And the only thing I have here is, whatever they choose, it's just going to be a slide. There won't be exploring or anything. It'll just have an outcome of something that happened. Maybe they get into a fight, maybe they have to sink the vessel, maybe the vessel attacks them, things like that. So let's just do, I'm gonna do number 4, no risks, blast the vessel from the water, right? Cannons are loaded and several shots splinter and destroy the vessel. Bodies of the undead spill out in the ocean and sink to the bottom with scimitars raised and inhuman screams sending a chill down your spine. Good call, the captain says. Your reputation with the crew increases. After sharing a meal at the captain's table, he hands each of you a small precious gem from his collection. So there's the thing where reputation is increased. They actually get a gem, which they can find the value of when they get to Waterdeep. And they made an interesting call, because actually that ship was filled with the undead, right? So this is just the small things you can do with Choose Your Own Adventure. And I'm exploring some new, I've done this before, like I said, but I'm just exploring some new ideas here, like with actually if they choose an option to go explore, I actually will go and have a map ready and tokens, and they actually do that. Now, there's another opportunity in here somewhere in the scenarios, like right here. This is a result screen. They can go explore, I think, a temple or something, or just return to the ship because the ship is running out of food. Well, I didn't do an additional map here because I felt like 2 dungeon crawls during this might have been a little too much, right? So again, as in all things in DMing and encounters, it's all about balance, right? So in this one, I actually just would explain what happened. As a matter of fact, I don't see, what did I do here? Let's see. Explorer. Okay, so this really breaks down what happened, right? You cautiously explore the temple, but stumble upon a sacrifice taking place upon an altar made of white bone. You quickly realize you are surrounded by cannibals, right? So then it goes on to say, like, crewmen die and they have all this problems and, it's just a horrible, horrible mess. Or they could have returned and nothing would have happened, right? So the reputation increases. Captain feels like they made a good call. So that is pretty much it, guys. This is just something I would encourage. This is what I'm doing for my characters as they come back from the Sea of Ice, assuming they live through that chapter. And you could do this probably on the way there or on the way back. But, Google Slides, again, as I have said many, many times in these prep videos, is really your friend here. It's great if you're doing some kind of visual representation. And I will be, this is probably one of maybe 2 or 3 that'll come throughout the entire adventure. And again, I don't do them too often because I don't want to wear out their welcome, even though they are kind of fun to do at the table. But they also, let me tell you, slides and linking slides can eat up so much time. I'm just warning you now. It took like 2 hours just to do, 2.5 hours or so, just to do 22 slides and make sure that they've actually all linked up the way they should. And it can get complicated really fast. So just be careful how much choice you give and how many scenarios you come up with. Start small, and then when you get used to it, you can your next big choose your own adventure thing can be something else, like it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Anyway, guys, that's it. Just wanted to share some of my prep and what I'm doing for the voyage from the Sea of Moving Ice back to Waterdeep in Chapter 2. All right, guys, of course, more to come with the more that I prep. All right, guys, see you in the next one.